never love you back. The streets will never love you back. Hey guys,
Hey, how are you?
we got Don Berlin here, my pal Don Berlin.
How you doing?
Okay, and we figured we give you a show tonight. We're staying for an hour, maybe a little over an hour, just chop it up. Uh, what interests me is that I was reading an article the other day, and in the article it said 30 children reported missing in Cleveland, Ohio during the first 2 weeks of May. Now, that's an extraordinary surge. Okay. So I figured let me go on. We'll chop it up. We'll talk about this. Let me know what you guys think would happen to these children. 30 children missing within 30 days. I mean, this is unheard of. But this is what's going on, not only in this country, in the world. Okay, people are stealing children, so you got to keep your eyes out. I got my co-host Don Berlin here. I'm gonna have his opinion on what he thinks is going on. You people, you could go in the chat, chop it up, tell me what you guys think, and we'll go from there. Before we start, let me say hello to Boston J, my narrator, Josephine Colombo, Sally Boy, Sling Blade, Charles, and all the other people in the chat. We got 27 people so far. So, we'll talk about this. And Don Berlin, what do you think? What's your opinion on this?
I think a couple of things stand out in my mind that are really noteworthy. They're really curious. First off, one of the things the article talks about is the fact that many of the families, that have been, involved with these missing children, whatever, don't have photos of them. Now, that was the thing that stuck out to me, that the police are saying that they could not acquire photos for all of these children from their individual families. So you have to ask yourself as a parent, how many parents don't have photographs, and many of them, of their children? Okay, so assuming that's true for the sake of argument, then you have to ask yourself, okay, well, what kinds of children are, quote, unphotographed, okay, in that manner? So, like, for example, children that are foster children, okay, children that are being placed by Children and Family Services temporarily into homes, and then they fall into human trafficking, into prostitution, drug addiction, drugs, gangs. Something in the streets, swallow up these kids because they're at risk. So the photos were the absence of multiple photos of each child, such that they could even do progression. So what I mean by that is, some of these kids are very, very young, and they're going to be gone for potentially a very long period of time. So the Center for Missing and Exploited Children and the FBI and many law enforcement agencies, they have software that can progress a photo of a child that is missing, say, 10 years ago, and show people what that child may look like today. When you have no photos of a child such that you could do any progression, then that does not bode well, at all for trying to recover them.
And someone just brought to my attention. What I have to do is I got to start putting the link up too to the video of where I seen this article, the 30 children reported missing in Cleveland. But I'll start doing that. Listen, I'm coming back a little at a time. I want to give you guys good content. But I'll tell you, Don, I mean, just thinking about it, how terrifying it
Yeah.
is just
Yeah.
to lose a child
Yeah.
in that sense. I
Yeah.
mean, the rest of your world, the rest of your life is destroyed.
Boy, isn't that the truth? You know, in a way, this is not to deprecate the seriousness of the death of a child, which is devastating. But with that comes some form of, closure. Here, there never is. It is a constant, perpetual, never ending search for the child by the family and the parents. They never get closure. They're always left wondering, what happened. And then, as time goes on, the sense of recrimination and self-blaming and how they could have missed the signs and the signals that rendered the child to wherever. Plus, one of the things, not to wax, you know, in my world, in the community and the military and what have you, but in the information warfare space, the worst thing you can do to a individual that you're attempting to use information warfare to torture is to give them silence, darkness, and vagueness. Let their imagination go into that space of horror. Okay. But when a child, in this case, is just like missing, okay, the imagination of the parent, and the foreboding thoughts, just go into a space of darkness that's terrible, terrible. So there's that quality of it too, is what this does to the family members and what have you.
Yeah, it's pretty scary. Look,
Yeah.
everything that's going on in the world today, would even drugs, you hear these stories about, these young kids on drugs, and then what they do is they run off and they leave the house at an early age, and their parents never see them again.
Yeah.
I mean, this is where I look at my life and how fortunate I was to have a mom and dad, to love me, to care about me, bring me up, take care of me, and things like that. Because it's just a sad story.
Yeah. Yeah. And JW's point, just think of all the kids being taken advantage of at the Joe Biden smuggling operation of the border. Well, that's another issue that's kind of anecdotal to this, but it's certainly true, JW. So many of these children that are being smuggled across the border are being done as a mechanism or as a vehicle, if you will, to get the parents across the border and what have you. And then they go, they're into placement and what have you. The parents somehow or another either don't make it, they die, they get hurt, they whatever. And then now you have all of these children coming across the border with just basically they're, orphans, really. They have no placement at all. They're familyless. And think about their parents, left down wherever they came from, what have you, get separated from their children, or of course, vice versa. The children get left, who knows where, going across the border, and fall into the hands of these international child traffickers and what have you. It's terrible, terrible.
What they do is they snatch them up, they'll shoot them up with drugs, and you know
Yeah.
what? They don't even know that they're alive.
Yeah.
What they do is they just pass them around,
Yeah.
for to make $1. But Miss Can't Be Wrong, did you ever hear the story of I Know My Name is Steven? Yes, of course.
Yeah.
I watched this on TV. This is a TV show, a movie that happened maybe over 30 years ago.
Right.
Saying about this little boy that missing, then all of a sudden they found him, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah, because even back in the day, I remember all the missing kids used to be on the milk cartons.
Yeah. And you have to, you have to ask, on this thing in Ohio, what kind of resources are available to try and track down all of these kids that are missing, and really trying to get to, really the causation factor behind it as to what is there really a pattern? It does not appear to be, from what I've read anyway, and this is only the one story, but it does not appear to be a serial kidnapper, okay, that's doing this, or a serial, if you will, human trafficker that is plucking children off the street. Because there would be patterns to that, such that they could pick up upon, and then find some commonality between an alleged serial kidnapping. It doesn't appear to be that. It just appears to be, from at least this one article anyway, and that's all you can judge by, is just a series of different unusual missing children.
I tell you, yes, it's very scary. But I also want to talk about, while we're on the subject about children and families and stuff like that. I got a friend of mine. I won't mention her name, but she has a daughter. Okay, she raised a daughter. She grew the daughter up, but the thing is, she left the house at a young age because the mother was a Republican and she's a liberal.
Okay.
And the mother and daughter don't even talk to each other no more. And I hear so many stories like this all the time because of people's what they believe in.
I have never quite understood that theory. Okay, that you could allow an issue, if you will, whether it's a political issue, a personal issue, or what have you, literally tear a family asunder, such that mother and daughter never talk again, and they depart one another's life over an issue. Okay,
isn't that insane? Isn't that crazy? But
it is, because here's the thing: that issue kind of evolves over time anyway, and the relationship should as well, and yet they allow that single issue of that single moment in time destroy the relationship. Okay, that to me is very different, that could happen. But it's kind of like no, I'm sorry, go ahead, what were you going to say?
Bella Napoli Batcave could be a situation where the children ran away from foster care. I mean, it's a possibility, but not all of them.
Yeah, I think Bella is partly right. I think, as we say, she's in the right bowling alley but the wrong lane. I think that maybe that's the case for some of them. That's why I said, the fact that some of these children have no family photos at all suggests to me that perhaps that they were in foster care or temporary placement or what have you, and then fell victim to the streets.
This can't be wrong. It's amazing how politics can also create trouble.
This is true. This is true.
This is true, because a couple of years back, it created trouble for me.
Yeah.
I was at my sister's, and I had an argument with my niece over Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Saying, and then I said, after so long, I said, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's why they say never talk politics or religion at the Sunday dining room table. It doesn't serve well. But it's true. It goes back to what you were talking about a moment before, what I was sharing yesterday, to a limited extent. So when I talk about friends and friendships, building, healthy friends and healthy friendships and whatever, lots of people oftentimes kind of search and define a friend as someone that you might have so many qualities in common. Okay, that equates somehow or another into a lifelong abiding friendship, and certainly that is possible. Okay, but what really defines a enduring friendship, if you will, is the two friends that come together with opposite issues, opposite views on a particular issue, and yet the bond of their friendship is so secure and so important that that's what glues them together, and no issue tears them apart. So that's the same thing, unfortunately in families. Sometimes that does happen, and hopefully more often. and other times it doesn't.
Flatbush BK. Remember the three girls kidnapped in Cleveland for 12 years? Well, that was the incident with the black guy, right? The girl was calling help, help, help. The black guy said, "Oh, what's going on over here?" And he didn't know. He walked right into a kidnapping. These
Yeah.
girls been kidnapped for 12 years. This guy impregnated them and everything.
Yeah.
And they end up arresting the guy. He ended up killing himself, or they killed him or something. But
Right.
what the hell's going on in Ohio?
Very difficult to say. It reminds me of I don't know how many of the listeners happen to tune into Red Wemette show. Red Wemette, for people who don't know, Red Wemette, he's from where I grew up in Illinois. He's a very good guy. He was a kind of like an outfit associate.
He was like a knockaround guy.
Yeah, definitely. He was an outfit associate in Chicago that had businesses on Rush Street, and ultimately he gets hooked up with a guy that was connected with a gentleman by the name of Silas Jane, who was a well-known horseman in Elgin, Illinois, and who was indicted for killing his brother, George Jane. I think it was George. There's three brothers. I can't remember which one. Anyway, so Red Wemette makes a decision one day that he's going to begin to. He's not really an informant per se. Okay, it wasn't that. What he does is he decides to go undercover for the FBI. And the reason why he goes undercover is because of the infamous Peterson children. So the Peterson children were the two kids that were murdered by what later turns out to be, years later, Red finds this out. And I'm talking about, like, I want to say, and don't quote me on this, but like 20 or 30 years later, he finds out that one of his very associates is the person who's responsible for the Peterson murders. And then he makes it his life mission with the FBI to find the people and prosecute them. Ultimately does, and they went away for life. So sometimes these stories have sad but at least closing endings and what have you. Excuse me. So. But on to a warmer note, besides the missing kids and what have you. That's it, right? Yes, thank you, Ms. Cameron. Yeah, the book Nobody Cares and What I Did About It. So it's a really actually good book. Red sent me that book.
And he actually tells his stories. Does he tell his stories on YouTube or Facebook?
No, he tells it on YouTube. He's he is Adam Flowers' co-host on one of the early mob generation programs when it grew out of Frank Collada's story. So Frank Collada was a small-time, if you will, thief in Chicago that was a part of the Grand Avenue crew. And ultimately in the late 1970s, leaves for Las Vegas to work with Anthony Spilatro. Frank ultimately was a member of what is known as the Hole in the Wall gang. This goes back to the jewels from yesterday, the jewelry stores. He would know a lot about that. It's too bad that, God bless Frank, it's too bad that he's not alive. He died of COVID. Tragic case. Oh my God. Frank Collada. I mean,
I like Frank Collada.
Yeah. So he really turned, after he left the federal security program and then moved back to Las Vegas and so on and so forth. And then, of course, the movie that is based on, in large part, on a lot of his life and that of Tony Spilatro. He helped produce and whatever, or he was a consultant on it. So, but anyway, so Frank, when he passed away, Adam then joined up with Red, and they created their own program. It's a good program. People should tune in. Usually it's on I think it's on Wednesdays or maybe Thursdays, but Miss Can't Be Wrong can tell you too.
Maybe we could hey Don, maybe we could get this guy on the show.
I could call him and talk with him. Yeah, definitely.
Call him up. Let's get him on the show.
I will. I'll call. I don't have his direct number with me anywhere. I don't think I do, but I know Adam very well. So I'll ask him if he'll come on. He's a good guy. He really is. Yeah. Very knowledgeable. Very knowledgeable.
Yeah, I used to watch him a couple of times when he was on Facebook many years ago. He was telling his stories. I never watched him on YouTube, but that's his YouTube channel right there. Miss Can't Be Wrong just dropped it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have to keep in mind, Red's recollections are his own. Okay. They're subject to interpretation by others who may have seen the same, or been involved with the same things, what have you. But they are his own recollections, and they're pretty accurate. They really are. They've been tested time and time again. When he's testified in various cases back, a long time ago during the Family Secrets trial. For people who don't know, Family Secrets was a major investigation in Chicago along the lines of like Operation Greylord and what have you. And it dealt with Frank Calabrese and others in the Chicago outfit that also testified. And Red was also in that case as well. He testified in that case. I don't remember exactly what his role was at the time in the Family Secrets case. But yeah, Scott, you're right. He was responsible for Frank the German Schweiss. Frank Schweiss is a very dangerous individual in Chicago. He was a stone killer. It is speculated by some that, he's killed who knows how many people and what have you. But Red actually has played on the Adams Adams show some of the actual tapes that never really came out in court. They're the actual tapes. He's still got them of Frank Schweiss in his apartment or whatever. They're fascinating to listen to.
No, they are fascinating because I did listen to them.
Yeah,
a while back.
Yeah,
I want to thank Teresa, the baby Marie, for the $1.99 super sticker. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah. So, but my only point is that with respect to Red's work on the Peterson case, I don't want to try and remember the exact details because I'll not remember them correctly. He knows them back and forth. But the bottom line was that he was instrumental in solving the Peterson case. And what was incredible was the fact that he didn't have anything to do with this guy when it actually occurred. He only learned of this much later on. And in many ways, I think Red would probably even say that it contributed greatly to, his decision to begin to cooperate or work with the FBI. It's I'm troubled by the way a lot of people characterize Red. He was not a confidential informant in the truest sense of the word. Okay. In other words, he didn't get himself into trouble or subjected to some kind of a potential criminal indictment and then decided to flip. That was not the situation with him. He began to work with the FBI, in an undercover capacity, born out of what he was seeing out on the streets. But the Peterson case, the children involved, played I believe, from what Frank has shared, or rather what Red has shared, a significant role in his decision.
Miss Campbell says no. Red wasn't a criminal.
Yeah. He
was legitimate. He was a legitimate guy, knock around guy, knew a few people, and I guess the feds approached him and said, "Listen, would you go undercover?" And he said, "Yes."
I don't know if it was that way or if he actually went to them. I can't remember.
He
I
might have
thought,
he might have went to them. He might have been maybe threatened or scared or something.
you know, we would have to ask Red,
Yeah.
because I can't remember, and I don't want to misquote him. I want to be mindful of that. But this is just based on my fleeting recollection, and that is that he kind of got tired of what he was seeing, witnessing and what have you, and
Miss
then
Can't Be Wrong. I think Miss Can't Be Wrong read the book, so she says he went to them.
yeah. That was my recollection as well. And I think, hold on one second here. 1 minute here. Let me just see if no, I don't have it down here. I thought I had his book down here. I know I have Frank's book. I actually have, believe it or not, Frank Collada sent me, this is when he was healthy. He sent me his hospital bill from when he was in the federal witness security program, and then said, "Do me a favor, send me a check so I can pay this." Okay, it was a joke, but it was signed by him, and I still got it and what have you. He was a good guy. He was sad situation.
I believe Red said he did it because they were murdering people.
Yeah, and he he was specifically, kind of referring to Frank Schwees and what have you. And now the star of the show has just walked in. Hold on 1 second. Stand by. Wait a second. Okay. Okay.
I love these dogs. All right.
Who is that?
Hey!
That's little Lila.
Hey, Lila.
Coming to talk to everybody. Hello, little Lila. This puppy, she's a rescue actually from Lancaster, from the Amish farms, and up at Lancaster, what have you. And my wife and I we belong to this thing called the Great Foundation. And she's a British, exactly, Lila the troublemaker. So anyway, so we rescued her from the Amish and in Lancaster, what have you, and she had never been in a structure prior to arriving here. She had only been in a slop barn or amongst all the animals. It was terrible. So she's very shy at first, okay, but then is a hellion. I mean, a hellion. Let me tell you, truly, yes, she can be, but she's very, 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 very nice.
Animals are the best.
Yeah, and she unfortunately has a habit of never, leaving my side here. Right? Right.
She loves you.
Yes, that's right. Exactly. One of these days, we're going to have a show where people come on the air and show pictures of their pets.
We have
we have actually 3 golden retrievers, and all of them are rescue from the Great Foundation. So they're a fantastic organization. GREAT stands for Golden Retriever Rescue and Training, and they rescue only Goldens, and they're very strict on who they place them with. It's spelled GRREAT.org, and you can see their dogs and what have you, and what they do for the dogs and so forth. But one of the things why they're so strict is that when they place a dog with you, you don't really own the dog, okay, for a period of time, and they pay for everything. They pay for all the medical, they pay for the food, everything. All the vaccinations, if they have to be spayed or neutered, they pay for that, and so on and so forth. So you truly are just fostering the dog for a period of time. And then ultimately, if you have first right to adopt the dog, and then even after you adopt it, you really only conditionally own it for a year, and then you're not allowed to like resell the dog or whatever. You can return it to them, but you cannot resell the dog. They're very strict on who they give their dogs to and what have you. But they're really sweet. They're great for kids. They really are.
When you go to say you go pick up a dog,
Yeah.
you have to give a donation?
With the Great Foundation, yeah, you have to give a donation because that's what they use to care for the dogs and also for all of their medical care and so on and so forth. So, the donation levels are dependent upon the age of the dog and what have you. Now, if it's one of their medical dogs, no, there's no donation. So a medical dog is one which has, medical problems, and they're taking that dog in so that the dog does not have to be put down, and then they care for the dog. You care for the dog. They provide all.
And they give these dogs, when these dogs are sick, and like you said, they have medical problems, they give them a certain time to live. If someone don't come pick them up, they're utilizing them.
No, not with the Great Foundation. They prohibit euthanization. They will never euthanize a dog unless a vet. Yeah, if a vet says that that the dog can't, sustain life because it's so, sick and what have you, that's different. But if a dog is ill or injured or what have you, the Great Foundation's belief is that they will spend whatever money is necessary. They will raise whatever money is necessary to care for the dog until, there's a determination made. They do not put dogs down. It's absolutely prohibited by their charter. And,
that's awesome. Because some people do, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
My niece has a rescue dog.
What type?
Not a pit bull, mixed with the little chubby ones, the bulldog.
Oh, yeah. Well, there are a lot of no-kill facilities, certainly like in the area where I live, in the Blue Ridge and in the Bull Run Mountain area, so forth, Fauquier County, Loudoun County, and so on and so forth. In Virginia, they don't have kill facilities. They're all rescue facilities, but that's because we're in horse country, so they would never do that. Speaking of which, let me ask you about another issue. What do you make of this? So I was reading today that Churchill Downs closed. No more racing because 13 horses have died in recent times. What's that all about?
I was reading that too, and I was saying, what is that all about?
Yeah.
I mean, and it's suspicious.
Very. I mean, like, the part of the land that we own that composes our farm is for the stable operations. We have nothing to do with the stables. We just support with the food and what have you. But we're very careful how the growth is done and managed and handled, and how the hay is gathered and that it's properly dried and so on and so forth and stored and what have you. So I'm thinking, okay, well, is this a feed issue? Okay, that's occurring, or is this an overtraining issue? In other words, they're training these horses, so hard that they're, basically causing their deaths. Is that the issue?
Well, you know what? That's what I say. I say maybe they're shooting them with something.
That could be it too.
Because everybody wants to win, and what they do is they do a lot of cheating.
Yeah, exactly.
They'll shoot these horses up with steroids, some kind of
butazolidine, right?
And they'll get rid of them this way. It don't show up. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
but it sounds like there's a lot of suspicion going on. Something's wrong.
Yeah, and they are not supposed to bute. They call bute, B-U-T-E, stands for butazolidine. The horses with steroids and other kinds of things like that, because they ultimately result in deeper and graver health issues and what have you. But I wonder whether or not these are other chemicals that are being, used to enhance their both training and so forth and so on. You're right, Miss. Can't be wrong. Steroids are very bad for the heart, and specifically long term. Um, but there's got to be a reason why they lost 13 horses in such a short period of time like that.
Just don't sound right.
No,
Don't sound right. I don't think it's food.
no.
These horses make these people make millions of dollars.
Yeah. I can't imagine that's that. And I would tend to very much doubt that it's some sort of, pestilence or insecticide or contaminant or whatever getting into the food, because that kind of organic poisoning, if you will, would be easily detected. Plus, they're testing them and what have you, and they're testing the food. So I don't, I don't understand, where this could be coming from and so forth. I just know that it's really sad that they're losing that many horses. And correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't it also not just at Churchill Downs? Wasn't it at one of the other major tracks like Belmont or someplace?
I'm not sure about that, Don. It's a
Yeah.
possibility.
Yeah.
But I did read an article about the horses. There was a whole bunch of them, maybe a dozen of them that died.
I first started reading about this right before the Kentucky Derby, when they had multiple horses that had to be euthanized on the track and whatever leading up to the Derby. So I don't get it. I don't get it.
There's definitely something fishy going on for sure.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So Scott is talking about, I wonder if it's on purpose. Red Woman talks about how they killed horses in Chicago for insurance money. It's a thing. Boy, that's the truth. One of the most famous missing person cases, back to the children for a moment, Helen Verice Brock. That case, was Helen Verice Brock was a member of the Brock Candy family. And she got involved with a guy that was in the horse business. That was basically a con man. He was always selling her Arabian horses that he was claiming, worth $200,000 and $300,000.
Beautiful horses.
Yeah, they are.
Those horses have the long hair on them and everything.
Right. Yeah, and then. Yeah, so Scott, Kenny Hansen was a stable hand involved with the killing of the horses. And Kenny Hansen, if I'm not mistaken, was one of the people, if not the person, that was involved with the Peterson killings too. The Peterson children that were murdered.
Gary Monteleone, I believe 3 of them died right before the race.
Isn't that something, Gary? I mean, I don't get that.
Years ago, you never heard of this?
No. Yeah, and Helen Brock, she was murdered over the horse fraud. That was the thing that Richard Bailey, that was the guy's name, who was Silas Jane's partner, that had defrauded Helen Brock, brought her this horse that was supposed to be, fantastic and what have you. It turned out to be lame. And then she was going to go to the Glenview Police, which is where her estate was in Glenview, near the Glenview the old Glenview Naval Air Station. She had a beautiful estate and what have you, and it's believed that that's also where she was abducted from and maybe even killed as well. But it was all over that horse case involving Richard Bailey. He was charged in that case. Wasn't charged, I don't think, with the murder. I think it was that was
1956, 55.
Right. That's when the Hanson boys were killed. Peterson boys were killed.
I'll tell you, that's some story, huh?
It is. It's a fascinating story.
And we should go over that story.
We should, but we got to get Red to come on and tell it. He obviously knows that story, back and forth and what have you. Danny Trio should be questioned about Danny Trio. Oh my God. Well, or Danny whomever.
Whoever his name is, right? We don't even know what his name is.
Oh God, what a guy. I don't know whatever happened to him, but meaning Danny Trio.
Gary, it's so true. I suppose corruption finds its way into anything.
Can. You can if you want to take the risk and you're greedy enough. It will. It will. Um, but anyway, so I'll definitely reach out tonight and ask see if I can get hold of Red and Adam if he'll come on and what have. That would be really a good show.
Yeah, I would love to have him on. Sure. I mean,
Yeah.
we have some fun with him.
Yeah. He's a good guy too. He's a good guy. And
I'll tell you, there's a couple guests I want to bring on. There's some other guy. What's his name? I forgot. He's new to YouTube. I forgot his name. He asked me to come on a couple months back, but I never got back to him. But I forgot his name.
Well, and the other thing is that I know a lot of people that would be interested in coming on and talk about different things, different issues, and we're kind of like trying to sort of bend the show's arc a little bit toward like current events, life events, things that are going on in people's lives, current stories, like these poor children that are being kidnapped from, or not kidnapped, but are being, missing from Ohio and what have you. A little bit of, mob stuff and whatever, although, I mean, frankly, as you know, that's not my thing and what have you. Because I think every story that could be told has been told a zillion times in a zillion different ways and what have you. So we're kind of like trying to, change the arc of the program and what have you.
My buddy bet heavily on a horse that was given huge amounts of steroids before a race. The horse suffered a massive heart attack and died 100 yards from the finish line. Yeah. Heartbreaking and criminal. And I think that's what's going on with these horses.
I wouldn't doubt it.
You know what? These people are so desperate to win.
Yeah.
They really are. They're so desperate to win.
Yeah. And not only that, but, there's a lot of money at stake too. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. What's this one? Had a little kid and had walk up and flash his chest. Again, I was so naive to what goes on in some of these communities. Open air child sex trafficking. Yeah, it's sad, and what happens is so often is that the children land up, in Thailand and Malaysia, Indonesia, in Africa, and what have you, and then get trafficked and whatever. It's really tragic. Don, I heard that Mexico, they found like 48 bags containing male and female body parts. What's going on with that? I had not heard that story, but anything in Mexico, I used to tell people, I said, in my work and what have you, people asked me whether or not I wanted to take on something in Mexico. My universal answer to everybody is I don't go south of the pool at the Fontainebleau Hotel in Miami. Okay. Send me back to Afghanistan, Iraq, whatever. It's safer than it is in Mexico. I would never go to Mexico.
Okay. I don't think I want to go there either.
Forget it.
Especially if you're American.
Well, I mean, the problem in Mexico is not only is there drug cartel lawlessness and what have you, okay, but the corruption there is such that if anything, God forbid, should happen to you, it's hopeless for it to have any definitive, kind of resolution or what have you. So to this other person's question about the body parts, to Benny's question about the body parts and whatever, I hadn't heard that story, but I wouldn't doubt that that's another horror homicide by the cartels. That's what it sounds like to me.
I'll tell you, Don, with all these issues like the body parts, the missing children, I'll tell you, this whole planet, there's a lot of evil on this planet. And I mean, hopefully, something gets done about this. There's some heroes that find these people that are doing this, because these kids are being taken off of the street and kidnapped. it's being done.
Yeah.
Maybe not this particular, but I'm sure out of that 27 or 30 of them, there's a couple of them that are being kidnapped. And I'm sure there's a bunch of them that are probably just walking away and disappearing into the face of the earth. But there's so much evil in this world. There really is. I mean, look, chopping bodies up. And you know what? Who knows? Selling body parts. Who knows with the Chinese? I mean, there's so much stuff going on, so many conspiracies, even with this government. I mean, this whole world is going crazy.
It's a sign of the tearing of normal society's fabric, and that is a byproduct of and caused by a lot of different issues that are complex, societal, governmental, personal, and other issues. But you're right. You have to find the heroes in small spaces. That's what I've always said. Yeah, you can find evil everywhere, but to find, heroes, you have to look in small spaces. And what I mean by that is, the heroes that are local just to you. It could be the guy in the corner. It could be the person that does a random act of kindness. It could be the individual who, reaches out to you and is next to you at the darkest moment of your life when you least expect it and most need it. Those are, my heroes that you have to look for.
This is rights. Rights are not tradition. I was being gang stalked, harassed, threatened, my property vandalized and stolen. I couldn't walk outside. They all slithered back into the shadows under their rocks when I started to open fire, 12 gauge.
Yeah, open carry a 12 gauge. Yeah, I mean,
that's another issue too. I wake up every morning, I put the news on. I mean, everyone's got guns. People are running up on people and robbing them. That they're watching them walk into their car. I mean, what's going on is look, remember what they were doing with this defunding the police? And this is why this is all going on, because they defunded the police. So think about funding the police now.
Yeah, well, it does not take a genius to figure out, okay, based on just pure statistics. In other words, reported crimes. And let's talk about not like burglaries or robberies or whatever, but hard objective crimes, murder, okay, aggravated assault with injury and what have you. When those numbers are going through the roof in places like Chicago, New York, San Francisco, a lot of these cities that have gone, completely woke and defund the police and what have you. That's what I mean by where the fabric of the society is beginning to tear, because you cannot introduce into a society lawlessness like this and expect that people are going to just suddenly get along. It doesn't work that way. So the reason why murders in New York and in Chicago and San Francisco and other places are going up like they are. Look at Memorial Day in Chicago, the most violent Memorial Day in the history of Chicago.
How many people got shot and killed?
14 people murdered, okay, and 71 people shot.
This
in
is
a 3-day period.
And wait a second, we're accepting this.
Yeah.
In a we're supposed to be this society, but we're accepting this. Like, you know what? It's okay.
And what's appalling is this, okay? If you compare the murder rate from Chicago to New York, population to population, Chicago is 2.3 million roughly people and probably less, whereas New York is, say, 8.5 million people. Okay, so it's less than a third of the size. And yet over Memorial Day weekend, it has triple the murders. Okay, how do you justify that? And then you're going to say, but now we need to defund the police. I mean, please, people.
Well, I want this guy's comment. A couple was stopped at a border crossing. The woman was carrying a baby in a blanket. The border patrols discovered the baby was dead.
Oh.
And they had stuffed the child's body with drugs. And you know what? This is what's going on.
Yeah. And that couple, was attempting to cross the border with a dead kid, just so they could get in, because they don't separate them or what have you. I mean, that's even sicker. I don't know whether in that case, whether the baby died, as a result of the drugs and what have you, being stuffed and what have you. But these mules and what have you are unbelievable, just unbelievable. And, every country in the world, without exception, every country in the world either does or seeks to have borders, okay, except one. That's us. Okay. Who ever heard of such a thing? We're, one of the most sophisticated country in the world, have unlimited capacity to solve this problem, both politically, financially, technically, and every other way. Okay. Much like many other countries are very capable of solving their border problems and do very effectively. Look at Israel, for example. Okay. Yeah, they have a wall and what have you, but before the
Why are
wall,
we, Don, it's a
yeah.
great subject. Why are we having this problem with the borders? Why can't we control it? Is it because our Constitution?
No, no, no. We
Because, you know what?
have
Because a lot of people use the Constitution against us.
yeah, yeah. We have the laws as well as the requisite technical means and law enforcement means to do what is necessary to protect our border. Okay, we do. And we had that for a very, very long period of time until the political will changed to protect the border. Okay, that's what changed when the political will changed to protect the border. Because why? The constituents of that political will were so inflamed over the fact that we were shutting people out. We could all speculate as to why that might be, why that particular constituency wanted open borders. But the bottom line is there is no technical reason why, or financial reason or political reason or legal reason that we can't solve this problem. And no different than we could if we wanted to. Okay. We could solve the voter integrity issue. Okay. If we wanted to. But there's not a political will to do that. What do I mean by that? Okay. Let me just give you an example for some of the people of my generation or older or what have you, or maybe not. In the olden days, people used to carry their luggage and put these stickers on their luggage as they were on steamships, and that was kind of like their identity. Same thing with a passport. There's no reason for us to have paper passports in today's technical world, but you'll never be able to get anybody to give up their passport, their paper passport, because the reality is, and this is the reality, okay, passports are scanned into a computer that is used by 138 signatory countries around the world. So we don't need a paper passport. Well, on the voter issue, okay, we don't need to have somebody with a voter registration card. It could all be handled through facial recognition. Okay, which is simply this: you go to the voter registration office, you get your picture taken like this, okay, and once you are deemed to be a legal citizen, what have you,
You get a face print.
Yeah, that's it. You show up at the booth, and you don't have to have any ID. You don't have to have a piece of paper. Just show you have a face, and that face goes to a database that says he's a citizen. That's simple, and no faking. And no frauds and no counterfeiting.
And you know what? That's how that's how fast they can get rid of this.
Yeah, exactly. So facial recognition identity is the answer to voter integrity, because if you could not make it to the polls, okay, there's a secure portal through which you could go online, in your home or on your iPhone with an app, show your face, and vote in your house. Okay, it's just that simple. If you can securitize me sending you money across Zelly or some other features and what have you, you certainly could do this.
Exactly. So we got Crystal Ward over here. She made a comment over here. San Francisco went downhill. Now San Francisco used to be beautiful, right? Beautiful. Now the mayor just came out and said she wants $65 million to fund the police. First they wanted to defund the police. Now they want to refund the police again. So now they're getting smart.
Yeah. Well, But where were you when all of the people were dying in the streets? I think it was around a year and a half ago. I had to go to San Francisco on some work, and I had to stay down near the Tenderloin district at the Intercontinental Hotel. Nice hotel, nice property, what have you. Everything was closed. I mean, it was just closed. And I'm not talking about necessarily because of COVID. I'm talking about the shops were all boarded up. The streets were completely, like the shops on the streets were boarded up on the first level. The restaurants. I was lucky to get any food at the Trader Joe's down the street, or there was Trader Joe's. I can't remember if it was that or the other one, some other store, what have you. But it was appalling. And, and the hundreds of people that are homeless and using drugs and open drug marts in San Francisco. What I don't get is why the people would put up with that. I don't understand that. Why they would put up with that. Why they don't leave. But apparently they are. Like in New York. I mean, the stories.
A lot's going on over here.
Well, some of the estimates of the population loss in New York talk about nearly 600,000 people, and these are not low earners. These are medium to high level earners are fleeing New York. And there's got to be a reason.
I want to get out of here too. Eventually, I'm going to get out of here. I don't want to. I mean, listen, in all honesty, look, this New York is not the New York I grew up in.
Wow.
It was a totally different place back then.
Yeah.
Growing up in the 70s, the 80s, now it's it's out of control. It really is. And people just keep on coming in here. The jobs, everything was going on. The whole country is it's a mess. I mean, how do you fix this? It just keeps on getting worse and worse.
Well, one of the major things is coming into New York. That I'll answer that in a second, Scott. Is all of the people that are crossing the border and coming into New York and what have you, the pressure that it puts on the systems in New York to try to take care of those thousands and thousands of people and what have you. And how do you know who you're getting? I mean, please, people, it's so porous and what have you. It's unbelievable. So, Don, do you think we should send the military to eliminate the cartels? Well, there is a basis in law that allows for the military to cross into Mexico under certain circumstances. These are not those, however. But there are circumstances where the U.S. could, if it wanted to, send the military to assist with the cartels. It's that is a very difficult political decision because Mexico is a sovereign country, and come out to Arizona, I'll take you around, and I can't imagine the president of Mexico would be very fond of us bringing the military in to invade their country, to take apart the cartels and whatever. Aside of the fact that, let's be real here. Okay. We're all adults. Okay. How many people, how many of the politicians in Mexico have been corrupted over time by the cartels or whatever? And what is their willingness to allow us to come in and help? So, is it possible? Theoretically, yeah. But from a practical standpoint, a political standpoint, I don't see it. Someone else had a question about, let me look here. I got to look back. People with diseases and criminals are coming in. How about terrorists? Michael Hacker. When you have the number of people crossing the border and you do not have adequate ability to create, if you will, certitude of identity, that is to say, you don't know who they really are, okay? Any kind of individual can seep into that group of persons and come in. whether that's from Cuba, whether it's from Venezuela, any other of the communist leading countries and or terrorist countries that sponsor terrorism. I'm not speaking about the communist countries necessarily. In other words, people from the Middle East and parts of Africa and whatever that are, involved with terrorist activities. Could they make them their way to the southern border? Without a doubt. Why? Because we do not have a mechanism under which we could definitively determine the identity of a individual at the point in which they hit the border and reject them. We don't. Anybody can say whoever they want to say they are based on papers, all of which can be easily contrived and what have you. So that means that you have to use other methods and what have you.
Now we got Teresa, the baby Marie. Where I'm at in New York, Rockland County, they brought illegal immigrants here, and it's craziness. A lot of famous people live there. It's surreal. What do you think about that? I mean, all these immigrants coming into this country, and they're going into all these neighborhoods. A lot of people are upset about this. They're sending them to Long Island now, and they don't want them there.
Educate me. Rockland County, where is that from? Is
Rockland
north.
County, that's New York. I guess maybe north.
Yeah. So past Westchester, up even further than the Berkshires and whatever, or even further than that, upstate.
Yeah, maybe not that far. Maybe I'm not sure. I'll tell you the truth.
Yeah. So
but they're going all over the place. I mean, these
I know
all over the place.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you do?
It's state imposed by both the governor of the state and the mayor of New York City, and the people who live there just have to accept it. That's brutal, just brutal.
How about you know what? A good. I heard in Brazil what they're doing is they are detaining all of these gang members. Okay, they're taking them in. If you have tattoos, they don't even care. They're just taking you in, and they're taking your clothes off. They're putting you in a prison cell. They took like 30,000 of them or 50,000 of them, and they put them in jail. They're screening every one of them. They're making sure that they're cleaning up that whole country.
I had not heard that, but then again, I'm not, my area of responsibility, my AOR is not this, the Southern Hemisphere. My expertise is in another part of the world. So I had not heard that, especially in Brazil. That sounds a little funny to me because of their political leanings and whatever under the new president. But if it's true, okay, that they're actually doing that, I would say that's a good first start. Being locked up in a prison in Brazil can't be nice at all, or pleasant. Grandview, that's Rockland County. Oh, yes, right, Piermont. Yeah, I know where that is. Yeah.
We Italians did the same thing 100 years ago. The Mexicans treat us same with contempt. No, yes, absolutely.
Well, that may be so. There may have been
we came legit.
Yeah, there may have been cultural differences and ways in which they were treated. But here's the big difference, and that is back then they weren't, if you will, terrorizing the communities and doing it in such a way as to cause the kinds of crimes that are occurring today. Now, was it a different type of crime, back then? Yeah, I guess you could argue that. Okay. But a lot of this crime that you're witnessing today are psycho drama type crimes that are not psychodrama, psycho horror crimes and what have you. Used to have a sponsor. I don't get that.
Italians were
But
different for sure.
yeah,
We came to work, no welfare back then. And
well, that's
but that's the thing. Look, I mean, this guy makes a good point. Look, anyone who needs welfare should get it.
yeah,
I don't believe in anyone starving,
right,
especially children.
right.
I mean, that's a terrible feeling when you're starving, when you're hearing your stomach growl and you're hungry for something, you can't have it. But the thing is, this guy made a comment. The Italians were different for sure. We came to work, no welfare back then. This is the thing now, Tom. Everyone, Don, everyone is looking for a handout.
It kind of harkens back to it reminds me of my wife's career. So for those of you that don't know about my wife, Kimberly, the love of my life, she was actually on the White House staff in the Bush administration after 9/11, and throughout 2001 through 2005, what have you. And what her portfolio at the time included things like welfare reform, no child left behind, child support enforcement. All of these things were issues that were near and dear to the heart of the First Lady. So Laura Bush, basically her office, her portfolio, if you will, included those kinds of things: welfare reform, no child left behind, and so on and so forth. So during those years, believe it or not, and you can look it up, okay, welfare in the United States was at the all-time low. Why? Because during that era, they had very strict regulations about the fact that, yes, no child will be left behind, okay? The children that need help and need to be cared for and what have you will never be left behind in America. But on the other hand, also within that portfolio was welfare reform, okay, which basically meant that you got welfare for a period of time, but then HHS, which is where she was assigned to this, the immediate office of the secretary by the White House, she managed the program whereby welfare reform began to get people back to work, okay, and get people the ability to be able to purchase their own home and have an apartment or what have you, have a career. And that's where America was going during those years, was they were lowering the amount of welfare, and increasing the amount of help to get people back to work, to get people to, have their own homes and get jobs and opportunities and what have you. And that seemed to be working very, very well, And then we turned into this giveaway society. Largely, I will say that what really sped it up is, frankly, the pandemic. That really was it. When you infuse the country and the populace with trillions of dollars in aid, and you don't have to go back to work because of the nature of the pandemic. I get that. Okay. It's very, very difficult for people to come off of that and get back to work. Okay. And a lot of that is what you're seeing, I suspect. I really do. It's one of the after effects.
Like Michael Hacker said, he said, a person used to have a sponsor when they used to come here.
Yeah.
Well, before you came to this country, you needed a sponsor, someone to sponsor you.
Yeah.
What happened with that? No longer?
I know you have to have a sponsor and you have to have somebody on the other end or what have you, but the illegals, they don't. So they're just streaming across the border. They're just basically showing up and streaming.
We got YZ. We came as refugees in '87. I remember making a joke to my dad that I was going to get welfare. He threatened me over his dead body. No one bearing his last name will do that. I never did it.
That's the ethic that existed back then, and today it's just, sadly, it's just not there. And the thing is that it's just like Teresa says here. Agreed. Welfare should be used to help people get on their feet. People make a career out of it. And if
Yep.
they get resistance, they just have
This is,
another child.
you know, Don, and seriously, look, this is the problem. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, people get too comfortable.
Yeah.
You know? See, I don't ever want to be too comfortable.
No.
Because when you're too comfortable, you know what? You sit back and you know what? You're never going to make nothing happen.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, when you're getting that check every month and you know, you're getting stipend with you know, food stamps and you know, a check for your apartment. Listen, who's going to go out and do anything? I mean, the money's coming to you.
None of that, but you know, it's not, you know, from a psychological and emotional perspective, it's not good that society has become a dependent society. Because what does it, you know, do to your sense of self-worth, of self-value, and what have you, compared to somebody who actually wants to, you know, go out and build something for themselves, for their future, for their children, their family, and so on and so forth. And, you know, that's an essential element of the American ethos, is to have a future, to build something for the future, what have you. I have a brief story. You know, it's kind of, you know, kind of related and what have you, but you'll get the point at the end. So I was in Kandahar, and I was talking with we'll call him a local official in a province and whatever. And I said to him, you know, I don't understand here. Why is it that you can't sit down with, you know, folks and what have you that are near you and plan for a future and make deals and come together and try and build something for the future? And he looked at me. We were having Hajj teas, hospitality, with some figs and what have you in his home and what have you. And he looked at me and he looked away and he looked back at me and whatever. And he said, Don, the reason is because in this world that we live in, I used to ask my neighbor and my friends and my family, you know, why we couldn't sit down and plan for a future. And you know what their response was, Jimmy? Take a guess.
Tell me.
Silence. And the reason why, he said, is because they're all dead. They all believed that there would be a future. They all believed that there possibly would be one for them. And they were all killed, okay, in the war and what have you. So that's how and why, in many ways, why the Afghani population was stealing for today, if you will, or living for just this moment. Because in their mind, there was no tomorrow. There was no future for which to build upon. Well, we're getting to the point, you know, in the United States where when you're not giving a person the hope and the dream for a future by giving them everything for today and no chance to build something for tomorrow, you know, they're not going to do that and what have you. So my only point being is that, you know, we should learn lessons from our former friends and colleagues in Afghanistan, Iraq, Sudan, and what have you, when they talk about that, you know, that you need to do something to build for the future. And welfare in perpetuity is not the answer. A dependent society does not work. You know, that's socialism and so forth.
Dom, last subject, and then what we'll do is we'll say goodbye to everybody.
Yeah.
But not only are Democrat globalists bringing in millions of illegals, but you are also forced to have diversity in the workplace. Doesn't matter if they are qualified. So they don't even have to be qualified today. They just get the job. What do you think about that? And, you know, that's the truth. A lot of people are not qualified today. There's so many things that are going on. Even with the kids today, what's going on in education, everyone's getting promoted. You know what? Everyone's a winner.
I'm not going to comment because of my job and my work and what have you on diversity, inclusivity, equality, and what have you, because it's important as a society. Yeah, we have to have that. But what I will say is this, okay? The reality is that the people who do better and are better at their jobs should get ahead and should be rewarded. Okay. And the people who are, inept and don't show up and don't want to work and don't want to, achieve greatness or whatever, great things are not going to come to them. And that's what I believe in. Yeah, we have to, as a society, be mindful of all elements. I get that, in all persons. Okay. But, at what point does it become where everything is totally flat? Okay. Totally flat. The inept and the genius are at the same, plane of competition, if you will, for the opportunity. That it doesn't work like that. It just doesn't.
This guy has a good they can tell us all about how bad we are, every problem every other country has with us, but they'll never taught about the atrocities abroad. The school system is radically un-American.
Boy, is that true?
Isn't that true?
Yeah. I
mean, I'll tell you, Dom, there's one thing about when I was growing up, the school system, it was very American.
Yeah.
You put your right hand on your heart.
Yeah.
You said the national anthem, and you loved your country. You were brought up to love your country.
Right.
The government always sucked, but the country was great. Had the Constitution. This was a great country. Our ancestors come here, they build a life for themselves, and a lot of opportunity here. Now, a lot of things changed.
They have so pureed out of education anything that defines the fabric of America, of American culture, traditions, and values, that they have homogenized the schools so that people don't even recognize them any longer. It wasn't just that we loved our country, when we were growing up. It's that we loved our community. We loved our families. We loved our schools, that we came to and what have you. Build relationships at and what have you. Today, you have real problems between the teachers associations and what have you, and parents who are up in arms about the manner in which their children are being, taught in the schools that is contrary to their family values. The problem with that kind of theory is that ultimately the parents, if they're able, will escape the public school system, and then it collapses. It can't survive with these radical far left or far right kinds of ideologies. It can't survive like that. It has to come into balance. Okay. So you have to, on one hand, you have to understand, and appreciate what parents are really concerned about today with the teaching of their children and what have you. And what I don't get is, it's the parents' prerogative and right as to what they want their children to be taught in school that they find, if you will, objectionable and shouldn't be stuffed down their throat.
And you know what, Don? This is where the argument comes in, the fight comes in with today's society. Okay, and I'm in public schools. My kids go to public schools.
Yeah.
Okay, you have every nationality there is.
Yeah.
Okay, and you know what? And listen. You see, I'm Italian, white. You can say the thing is we're the minority now.
Yeah,
and my voice don't count anymore.
Well, that may be so, and I understand that. But the bottom line, however, going back to the schools, are that whether you're white, black, green, yellow, purple, whatever you might be, anything under the sun, you still have family values, that you live by. And
when I say that my voice don't count anymore, maybe you didn't understand me. I'm 54 years old. I'm a white male.
Yeah.
My voice don't count anymore.
Yeah. Well,
that's what I meant.
Yeah. I understand. It's it's a very difficult, complex situation. No question about that. But I mean, I look at it also on the other side of the coin too, and that is, you know, your voice does count in smaller uh, locations and smaller places and whatever. And if you can make a difference in that smaller place, sometimes that's even more important than what you could say in a larger place.
Well, yeah, if you can, if you have a platform and you can talk on here and
Mhm.
use your platform,
Mhm.
uh, you know, to do better things, yes. But in the school system, bringing my child and just why I don't agree with the transgender flags. I don't agree with them with the gay stuff in the schools.
Mhm.
There's a lot of things I don't agree with, and a lot of parents don't agree with either. All the old American people
Mhm.
saying, but now you got new people coming in,
Mhm.
and this is their way of life. They like it this way. So it's a lot of, you know, bunking heads.
Yeah, and how things are going to get resolved, I don't know, but it has to come into balance at some point or another. When Gary says seems the 1970s or 60s flipped the switch, and this is where we are now, good and bad, boy, isn't that the truth? I mean, each one of the decades, the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and so on and so forth, certainly had a unique quality about them. Um, I was listening to a program, on the so-called 5 years of fate, and from 1963 to 1968. Think about where the country was. John F. Kennedy gets murdered and assassinated in 1963. His brother, 5 years later, in June of 1968, Martin Luther King was killed, and others. Then the Vietnam War, and all of these things were literally, tearing the country apart. The violence in the country, the Days of Rage, the Weathermen, the Underground, all the others and what have you that were going on in that time period. It seemed like the country was on fire during the 1960s, and people were, literally speaking as desperately, or if not more desperately, than they are today. Yeah, we don't have those things happening today. Okay, those kinds of cataclysmic events and what have you. But the events that are happening today are just tearing the country apart.
All right. Well, we're in here almost an hour and a half. Don, I really appreciate you co-hosting with me. You're the best co-host.
Thank you. Thank you.
Everyone on the chat, Beck Brooklyn, YZ, Teresa, the baby Marie, Boston J, all you people for showing up. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us. I guess we'll see you one day during the week. But listen, hey, have a great night. Have a good week. Stay safe. Give your life to God. Do the right thing. And until a couple of days, maybe tomorrow, we'll see you again soon.
Yeah, and as I said yesterday, if people have ideas, I think we came up with a good one, and trying to see if we could reach out to Red. I know he's a very sharing guy. I'll try to get a hold of him. If other people have other ideas that you want us to cover and talk about and what have you, and again, we're trying to, if you will, change the arc of the program to talk about our own lives, lives of people in our community, in the country, political, things and what have you, international things, and things that people are interested in hearing about. That's kind of like where we're trying to head, with a little bit of mop stuff in between.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, enjoy your week. Don Berlin, thank you so much. I love you all, and I'll see you on my next show.
Take care. God bless. Bye-bye.
Bless. The streets will never make you grow. It's not a seed, it's a gutter. There's no happy endings in this life. So this is my message to you. The streets will never love you back.